We have a lot to cover in today's video, including some trade rumors around the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Buffalo Sabres. It was a huge day in Ottawa as well, with the sale of the Sens finally getting a step closer to being finished, with a new ownership group ready to take over. We have a new head coach in the New York Rangers organization, a few signings, news in Philadelphia. Plus, will the Stanley Cup be awarded tonight as the Golden Knights try to close out the Florida Panthers in Game 5 of the Stanley Cup Final? All that and more coming up next. Welcome back to another video here, Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a lot to cover today. News-filled day for sure. Plus, we have Game 5 tonight. We'll start with that. The Golden Knights are trying to win the first Stanley Cup in franchise history this evening. Of course, in year 6 of the franchise, which is quite remarkable. They've done a lot in their short existence in the NHL. The Florida Panthers are going to try to stay alive and force a Game 6 back in Florida, but it's not going to be any easy task. They've yet to win a game in Vegas, not only in this series, but so far as a franchise. They've never beaten the Golden Knights during the Golden Knights' time in the NHL in Vegas. It's yet to happen, and this is a critical game if they're going to have a chance to do so. And they're doing it with a, likely very, very, very seriously injured Matthew Tkachuk, who probably shouldn't even be playing. I can't say with certainty that he is playing tonight, but I believe he's going to dress up, if at all possible. He's played so far, but you can tell he's dealing with a severe injury, and the team is just not the same when he's not there and being 100% like he normally can play. It's a huge blow for Florida for sure, but Tkachuk is not right. He's certainly dealing with something serious, whether it's a serious shoulder injury, broken collarbone. We don't know the full extent of it, but there's something along those lines after taking that big hit from Kolzar earlier in the series. So we'll see. Can the Panthers stay alive tonight, or will the Stanley Cup be coming out tonight? And will we get to see Captain Mark Stone do his patented celebration, lifting the Stanley Cup over his head for the first time in his career in Golden Knights history? We'll see. It should be a fun game, and I hope it's a close, entertainment game for sure. And looking forward to watching that here in a little while. We have some signings today as well, a couple quick ones. One actually happened yesterday, and I totally forgot to mention it. I mentioned it in the intro of the video and somehow accidentally skipped over completely, but the Sharks have signed a 2022 first-round pick, Philip Bystedt. He was a pretty solid-looking prospect, to be honest. He's had a big year in development. He's a 6'4", 204-pound left-shot centerman, was the SHL Rookie of the Year, playing in Sweden this past year as well. No guarantee if he comes to North America next year. He still might play another year in Europe. I think most likely what happens is he attends training camp at San Jose and they make a judgment call. There is a European assignment clause in the contract for one more year, which could allow him to play in Sweden if they decide that's what's best for his development. The Panthers have also made a signing today as well. The Florida Panthers will sign a Swiss-born goalie, Ludovic Weber, a 27-year-old. He gets a 1-year, 2-way contract, expected to make the jump to North America next year. And the Edmonton Oilers, just before I started recording, announced a signing as well. They've extended pending UFA forward Derek Ryan. He gets a 2-year contract extension at $900K. So we knew that some of the bottom 6 veterans that are expiring deals were potential to return. I know Derek Ryan's a favorite there with the hardworking forward. It seems to be the coaching staff are fond of. So not a shock that he gets re-upped and certainly gets to stay in Edmonton a little bit longer. News out of Philadelphia today. They've added another former member of their franchise to their front office. Patrick Sharp, who's mostly known for being a Blackhawk, but was actually drafted and started his NHL career in Philadelphia. Had to kind of move on to go to Chicago, where he's seen the bulk of his success. He's 41 years old now. He's been working as a broadcaster with NBC Sports. It was possible for him to return and go to be a broadcaster with the Blackhawks this year. That was something that he was negotiating, I guess. But once this opportunity came up, he decided to take this instead. So he's going to be a special advisor for the hockey ops department. So he'll have a similar role with the Flyers that Daniel Briere did before he became GM. When he was there working under Chuck Fletcher, he was a special advisor. He'll do a variety of things. He's going to be spending a lot of time with the young players and the youth in the organization, and kind of working a little bit in that sense as well. But he'll kind of do a variety of things and kind of learn the ropes of management, so to speak. But he should be a pretty good addition. He has 3 Stanley Cups under his name. Also won an American Hockey League Calder Cup championship with the Flyers organization, member of the Philadelphia Phantoms in 2005. So obviously another, well-experienced former Flyer getting in the mix there with Briere and Keith Jones, etc. So they've assembled themselves a pretty good-looking front office. We'll see how things go in Philly. And we had finally getting word today on the New York Rangers hiring into the next head coach. Chris Drury and owner James Dolan have announced that they've hired Peter Laviolette. So he has been considered a front runner for this job for quite some time. I'm not sure why it took Drury so long to make this decision. I know when John Hines became available out of Nashville, he certainly gained some consideration. There were some that thought that might have been watching a few other scenarios. For example, Toronto, wondering if Sheldon Keefe was going to become available or not. We still don't know 100% if Brad Treliving intends to have Keefe coach this coming season or if he's going to go in another direction. It's believed that Keefe is going to be retained for another year, but we don't really know for sure because they haven't come out and said that officially. But I kind of wonder if he was watching that and eventually kind of ran out of patience and had to make a decision. But Laviolette knows that Metropolitan Division well, coached the Islanders a long time ago. He's coached Carolina, of course. He's coached Philadelphia. Certainly makes his rounds here through the teams in that division. So the Rangers get a guy who's well experienced, been to the Cup final with 3 different teams. So he's certainly well accomplished in that sense. So we'll see if he can make a difference here and help get them over the hump. I know they weren't pleased with how things went in the playoffs this year, and there's going to be a ton of pressure on not only Laviolette, but the players and Chris Drury to get this team over the hump and get them closer to a Stanley Cup in the next couple of years. Or there's going to be some different people, I think, looking for a new job as well. And, the owner there is very impatient and makes some knee-jerk reaction decisions at times. So we'll see, but Laviolette should be a good fit there. We'll see how things go with them this coming year. And, of course, the big news today was the Ottawa Senators are finally sold. They finally have an agreement in principle in place with Michael Andlauer to buy the team. It was ended up being $950 million, which is a record sale. Obviously, the Senators sale is going to probably push up values of all the other NHL franchises and likely have a big impact on expansion. And I know it might be early, but I know based on what we've seen and heard, all the rumblings around the league in the last little while, I do believe in a not too distant future, the NHL will be talking expansion again. And I think we could see it is probably going to be gradual, but I can see them going at least 2, if not 4 more teams in the next, 5, 7, 8 years. Hard to say the exact timeline, but this will definitely have an impact, I think, on the price tag it's going to take to get a new franchise for sure. Of course, the Melnick girls retain 10% of the franchise, and there is a dedicated video on the channel, of course, as well, kind of go into more details about Andlauer, but we also learned some more details as well since I put out that video about how everything is going to be working and with this group as well. Of course, Michael Andlauer, if you're not familiar, the Toronto-based billionaire, owns 10% right now, the Montreal Canadiens. Of course, that stake will be sold. Obviously, it would be a conflict of interest for him to own shares in 2 different NHL franchises. Andlauer also owns the Hamilton Bulldogs of the Ontario Hockey League, which has been a very successful junior franchise, won multiple league championships during his time as owner. Of course, the other thing here is we do have a very local presence within this ownership group as well. It's believed that, and actually confirmed, that Jeff York, a farm boy, Jason York's brother, in case you're familiar with, former Senator Jason York, his brother was the former CEO of Farm Boy, pretty large business in Ontario. He, along with, I think his group comprised of about 20 different local investors, which total, I believe, somewhere it's around $100 million. I think was the total. Not sure the exact amount. But Jeff York and the ones who own Claridge Homes, which is Neil and Sean Malhotra and their father Bill as well, who are real estate developers. They're all a part of the local group here that's kind of partnered with Andlauer to be minority stakeholders. So he certainly has a pretty diverse group. Obviously important to have somebody in there that has the real estate side of things covered as well. There's talk that Michael Andlauer is going to be moving to Ottawa as well, wants to be very much involved with the community. And this seems like this is a really great day for Ottawa, to be honest. I think that they got the right guy here. He's a very passionate hockey person. Has been a dream of his to own an NHL franchise and win the Stanley Cup. And you can tell that he's got a lot of great references from people that have worked with him from his other roles. The NHL is very familiar with him as well from being an alternate governor with the Montreal Canadiens for owning a stake of that franchise. And it just seems to make a lot of sense that this is a win, a major win for Ottawa. It's believed as well that there's plans to offer, I don't think anything's finally official or anything like that, but I know they most of these groups, including Andlauer, was believed to have talked to Daniel Alfredson about being a part of the ownership group. That I don't believe materialized, but it is believed that they're going to try to work in to get him back involved with the franchise on a more official basis and get him into an official role in the front office of some sort. It's hard to say exactly what his title will be, but it's believed he will be involved in some capacity. It's going to take some time for everything to get sorted out. It's going to probably be into August or September before everything is finalized and closed. It's likely that this will get approved by the NHL Board of Governors. Hard to say exactly when. The next meeting is June 22nd. That might not be enough time because they do have to go through. There's a committee that reviews everything first, and then it's recommended to the board. So they could always do a vote, even if there's no official face-to-face meeting plan. They can do it virtually as well. So we'll see. It shouldn't be too long before that part is done. It'll just take time for the closing process to take place and get everything on paper and go through the legal process. So obviously, like I said, it's going to be into August or September before everything's signed, sealed, and delivered. And Andlauer has full control of everything here. Be very curious to see how this impacts some of their decisions. Many are saying right now that even though there's lots of rumors about Andlauer wanting to bring in a lot of his own people and was likely going to be the group that would make the most changes within the staff of the Senators, that it might not be very immediate given the timing of the sale and giving how everything's, all the important decisions that have to come this offseason and next season is going to be so close by the time that he has full control that some of the changes that we may see may not happen right away. That we might see Pierre Dorion and DJ Smith continue on for another season. It's hard to say exactly, but that's what many expect here right now. I know there's lots of rumors about guys like Steve Staios, who has a long-lasting relationship with Michael Andlauer. Patrick Waugh actually officially resigned his duties from the Quebec Remparts today, which came shortly after the Andlauer announcement was made. A lot of people were kind of putting two and two together there. It's like, I will caution you, I don't think the two are connected whatsoever. We've known for like a year that Patrick Waugh was going to be stepping down from the Remparts. The timing of it seems funny, and I can understand why people would raise an eyebrow, but it's not like it's breaking news. We've known for a long time that Waugh was going to be done with the Remparts this year. He also did say, though, that he put out a statement that he knows Michael Andlauer very well, but has no idea if he plans to call and talk to him about any role, so nothing that way. But he also had said previously that he was having a hard time getting any NHL interest. So we'll see what happens with Patrick Waugh, if he has a role down the road or not. Hard to say, but changes are likely going to come. It just depends on how everything comes to be. The other thing we learned as well is that one of the advisors for Andlauer is former Senators President Skelliter, who was one of the original members of the franchise way back when they first were getting the team back in Ottawa a long time ago. So certainly nice to see him involved. I think Andlauer's done a great job of tying in the local community, local investors, and this just seems like a real good match. So hopefully everything works out, and this team can continue to take steps to build itself up. It's certainly on the right track to have success here for a long time. So we'll see how that all works out, and hopefully no more on everything else in the near future. On some trade talk, we're looking at a couple of different teams. We want to look at Toronto and Buffalo and Washington too. We'll get into that here in a sec, but the Leafs and Capitals are connected. The Sabres, when it comes to Buffalo Sabres, word is that Kevin Adams, the GM of Buffalo, is very much engaged in all kinds of trade talk. There's lots of NHL reporters who are saying that the Sabres, not to say that they're going to be making a ton of moves. I don't think they will, but apparently they're saying that GM Kevin Adams has been having a lot of conversations. There's all kinds of chatter. I know, listening to a lot of reporters, they're saying that things are really heating up around NHL trade talk. A lot of GMs are having a lot of conversations. Not to say that it's all going to materialize, of course, that never comes to be. But at the end of the day, things are picking up, which is good and interesting and entertaining for all of us fans. But one thing that we are expecting in Buffalo is a trade involving Victor Olofsson. Sabres writer Lance Lazowski has confirmed that the player and his agent are both expecting to be traded this offseason. We know that the Sabres have built up a good young core. They have a lot of young players. They have to they can't all be longtime Sabres. There's obviously some of them are going to be due to contracts and cap and where the fit is and all that. And Olofsson, as much as he's been a decent player for them, it just seems like they feel like they have enough other players that they can replace him with. So he is expecting to be dealt. So we'll see where he goes. He hasn't been linked to any specific teams here as of yet. When it comes to the Maple Leafs, I've seen some rumors regarding Tom Wilson of Washington that apparently the Leafs have been kicking tires on his availability. He's entering the final year of his contract. Obviously, he's not signed to an extension yet because he's not eligible until July 1st, but I've seen a number of reports regarding his potential availability. I personally think it's just teams having wishful thinking and kind of wondering out loud if he were to be available, what would it take to get him on our team? He's one of those players that you hate playing against, but you'd like to have him on your side. And to be honest, Tom Wilson, I don't think is a player Washington is going to want to trade. We know that Washington went through a big sell-off mode at the end of last season. They sold a lot of assets. We seen reports that GM Brian McClellan talked a lot with Alex Ovechkin about the direction of the team, and even though Ovechkin understood why they were doing what they were doing, I don't think he was overly thrilled about it because he's trying to win again before his career is over and knows he's only got so much time left. And I don't imagine he's going to want to see the Capitals trade Tom Wilson. And for one, he plays a fair bit with him on his line, and he knows how important he is to them. They've already had other conversations, and I've seen interviews with the general manager saying that they were hoping to sign Wilson and kind of do a long-term deal to make him a Capital for the remainder of his career. So teams like the Leafs or others can kind of kick tires on the idea of trading for Tom Wilson. I'm not saying he wouldn't be traded. Everybody can be traded, of course. I just don't see it happening. And as much as those reports are out there, I just think they're kind of, not very likely whatsoever. But the other name that I thought was very interesting, talked about here recently from Pierre LeBrun, was William Nylander of the Maple Leafs on the Overdrive program on Toronto TSN radio, talking about, just the Leafs and things we could see under new GM Brad Treliving. And he's talked a bit about the fact that he doesn't believe that Treliving has made any promises to the core four, meaning Matthews, Marner, Tavares, and Nylander, that they're all for sure going to be back. His belief that obviously that their full intent is to sign Matthews, which is obviously not earth-shattering news here. John Tavares has a no-move clause, so those two guys are not going anywhere. And LeBrun said that he feels that Treliving has the feeling that Marner would be too difficult to replace because of the type of player he is. And if anybody would be moved, the more likely one would be William Nylander. And mostly because of his agent and the contract and what his demands might be on the next deal. We know the William Nylander contract negotiations did not go well with Kyle Dubas the first time around coming out of his entry-level contract. Look how long things drag on. They held out, and he did not even sign until, I think, the cutoff's December the 1st. Like, he was, 5 minutes away from hitting the deadline to not being able to play all year. He ended up getting, I believe, all or majority of what he wanted in his contract. So I guess in a way it worked out for him, but it ruined his season. When he first came back, the Leafs fans were so upset with him because after being away and missing all that time, he was really rusty. He was not the same player, and it took him the rest of the season to really find his groove and to become the player that everybody thought he was. Now nearing the end of his contract, you could say that that's a bit of a bargain. And based on how he played last year, making what he makes, it's a very reasonable contract. It's a bargain deal. He's going to want a big raise. We know that. We also know his agent not only has held out with him, but he's pulled some stunts and some pretty tough, grueling negotiations with other players, including Johnny Gaudreau, who, of course, we know that Brad Treliving knows all too well how things went last year. They were led to believe right up to the 11th hour that Gaudreau was going to re-sign, and then they pulled out last minute and signed in Columbus. So he knows firsthand what this is like. He's dealt with this agent, and he knows the tactics that he uses. So he's going to be well prepared going into the Nylander contract extension conversations. But at the same time, what LeBrun was saying is not that they're looking to move William Nylander. They're not going to make a change just for the sake of making a change. You heard the comments from Treliving after being hired as GM. He's certainly not about to do that. But what LeBrun was saying is that if negotiations don't go well, and it looked like they're going to really drag on, and be as difficult as they were with him last time, and or they're going anywhere close to like they were with Nylander, where it's going to drag on and have him potentially walk. They're not going to let that happen. That would be what would lead to a trade. And yes, because of the negotiations and the contract, that's why he feels he's the most likely to go. And now, if they were to trade William Nylander, it would have to make a ton of sense for the Leafs. And I suspect that they are most likely if they would probably target either an all-star level goaltender or a real true number one defenseman, somebody who's even stronger than Morgan Rielly to take the pressure off of him and to really solidify that decor. To me, that's what they would do if they decided to move William Nylander. Now, I'm not saying they're going to do that. I think they're going to try to sign him, see how it goes. But again, like these guys all went through on their other contracts that they have now, you see none of them are willing to save any money for the Leafs. They all want all the money. They're not doing any team-friendly deals. They want to get paid, and it's going to really hurt the cap situation for sure. But if Nylander's agent, Louis Gross, wants to drag things on and really be difficult, risk holding out again, then I think we're going to likely see just going to say, okay, enough of this and trade him. To me, that's what they would end up doing, but we'll see. But Nylander is the most likely. Doesn't mean it's going to happen. I think the Leafs will see some trades, but they're probably going to be dealing more so with the supporting cast. But let me know your thoughts on all of today's news down in the comments. We'll talk about it further. It's the Stanley Cup coming out tonight. Is Vegas going to wrap this up? Who's your vote for the Conn Smythe Trophy winner? Let me know down in the comments. We'll talk about it later on and throughout the evening. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the latest news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.